Stealing Focus!
Hello! Welcome back to our Stealing Focus Real Thoughts on Fosse, Verdon.
Episode
3. Me and my baby, my baby and me.
We're about as happy as babies can be. What if I find that I'm caught in a storm?
So, this is the episode where we get a lot of Gwen Verdon's backstory.
So
much backstory into her tragic backstory with her former baby and the guy who raped her. And oh my God, like she went through some shit.
Yes.
So, but I'm just gonna go through the episode. So the episode starts with Fosse going into the editing room, and Fosse, they give a glimpse of this in All That Jazz if you've ever seen it, but like with his movies, he like lived in the editing room. He was obsessed with the editing room. And the idea of someone else editing his film for him, just like, he hated it. And he says it in the episode. He's like, I feel like I was robbed and someone took a dump on my bed.
Yeah.
But what's cool is they start the episode off with him going into the editing room, and there's like a fantasy dance sequence with all these gorgeous ladies who come out, and the red carpet is rolled out. And that was the first thing in this series that felt like it was actually Fosse.
Yeah.
Like, it's like how Fosse would have told the story of his life. So it was really interesting. That didn't feel like a biographical moment. That felt like, I don't know. I mean, they did in the first episode, they had a moment where he fantasized about just jumping off the balcony.
Yes, which was very funny yet poignant.
Yeah, and there was that, and then there's this. And I think those are the only, like, fantasy sequences we've seen so far.
Yes.
And then at the end of that sequence, right before the end of the cold open, he gets, like, sucked back into the editing
And the
room.
lighting changes, too.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool. And the dancing was in a very Fosse style, and he was feeling pretty good about himself. And then it goes into the days when he was editing Cabaret and right when he got Pippin. And this episode, it's really more about Gwen and also about how Fosse was kind of taking care of his daughter Nicole kind of on the back burner.
Yeah, so that he could go philander
And edit and all of his stuff. So some fun stuff we noticed. So Norbert Leo Butz is in this episode. Tony Award winning musical theater legend Norbert Leo Butz. Norbert Leo Butz, who knows how to play to the balcony, is playing Patty Chayefsky. And Patty Chayefsky wrote a bunch of screenplays and plays, and he has a bunch of Academy Awards. Probably the most famous thing he's known for is writing Network. But he and Fosse were best friends. And so there's a whole sequence where he's like kind of like making Patty babysit for his daughter. And it's Norbert Leo Butz. And it took us kind of a while to realize that it was him. He's very subtle, very subdued, very like, oh, why do you do this to me, Bobby?
He's reining it in.
Yeah. He's not doing his, Papa Higgins shtick from My Fair Lady, which I think was the last Broadway show he did. Anyway, so that was pretty fun. We also have Peter Scolari from Bosom Buddies. Is that too much? Too old? Okay, so the guy who played Lena Dunham's dad on Girls was, I think he was Gwen's manager or agent or something, so it was Peter Scolari. He was good.
I feel like people would know him more from Bosom Buddies than they would from Girls.
I hope so. So one of the cool things, they end this episode with this really amazing moment. Again, it's from this biography. You got to read it. They are using this biography as the roadmap for the show. The moment when Gwen Verdon was in Can. And like no one knows Can. Like who knows about Can?
Dancers.
No one does. No one really. There you go. I mean, we know about the Can, but like, no one knows the show Can really. So she had this song in the show or some big number in the show. And famously, the first time she did it on Broadway, she goes to do this quick change and she's like half dressed. And the guy comes back and says, you got to come out here and do a bow. They're not letting the show go on. So again, a testament to Michelle Williams insane acting skills. She comes out and she does a bow and she just, oh my God, you see her run the gamut of the emotions. One of the things I think we're learning pretty quickly is that this show is very much dealing with non-linear storytelling.
Yeah, it bounces around a lot.
It bounces around a lot. And it's really interesting. I feel like if you didn't, again, we've said this in previous episodes, but I feel like if you don't know musical theater history, it'd be really easy to get lost.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, Megan and I know the difference between, we know that Can came before Dammy and Keys, which came before Cabaret, you know, XYZ. But like, I feel...
don't. Or you might.
You might. I hope the people watching this show would, because it's written for them. But if you don't know that stuff, I just feel like you'd be really...
lost.
But you know what? There's a million TV shows and movies about stuff that I don't care about, that I'm just supposed to know, like sports or something. So screw it.
I'm not a doctor, but I enjoy Grey's Anatomy.
Okay. But what did you think? Did you have anything about this episode you want to say?
We got a little peek at Joel Grey, which was fun.
Got a peek at Joel Grey in the editing. He was editing two ladies.
Yes.
And
that was enjoyable.
Yeah, and the editor was like, should we not do this right now? Because Fosse's daughter Nicole's sitting there, and he's like, why wouldn't we?
Yeah. She said it was funny.
She said it was funny. There was a moment where Gwen is cast in this play.
Oh, children,
which we looked it up, and apparently that show ran for one performance and was about children who like torture their babysitter.
Yeah, like 3 kids that do that.
Oh my God. But it's so, oh my God, it's so heartbreaking watching Gwen in those scenes.
Well, she has this monologue about the angel boy that she gives, which was very difficult for her to work on. Oh, and then there's that whole like, that scene between her and Fosse.
Yes.
Where he brings up her dark, like, secrets.
Yeah, he's like, they should change it to a girl, because what do you know about raising a boy? And she's like, fuck you, and storms off. But then she ended up giving like a better performance in her rehearsal.
100%, because she pulled from it.
Fosse's notorious for that. He would push the buttons. Yeah. He would needle you and kind of get you to this point where you were like, he could expose that raw stuff. But it's so heartbreaking watching her in these rehearsals with them, giving her notes, and she's being such a trooper, and she's being so game for everything. I did like at her audition, she was like, she walked in and had a smile on her face, and she's like, I'd like to do it standing. I liked that part. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. I feel like if you've ever been in a show where you're getting all the notes, I feel like that scene is a very...
Oh, as an actor, it's a
very visceral response, I think, to that.
No one wants to be in that position. And to have your child watch you get all the notes. Oh. And to have your child then tell your ex-husband...
Oh, well, here's the thing.
You were getting a lot of notes.
They never divorced. They were married till the day. They were married till the day he died. They were split up.
Knowledge.
Yeah, they were split up for sure. This wasn't a very show-busy episode. No. Except for the opening sequence, there wasn't really anything very like musical theater-y about it.
No, I feel like this made you care about them a little more because you got the backstory, so you could relate to them or pull from like...
Yeah.
Pull at your heartstrings.
Yeah, and they've only hinted at Fosse's backstory so far. They've only shown little clips, so they haven't gotten to him yet. But this was a big kind of insight into Gwen's story.
And to know they were both sexually abused, I think, adds a whole other side to this.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. They both like really had kind of some messed up childhoods doing the same thing, like dancing in burlesque shows, and because they were doing this showbiz stuff, it put them in proximity to people who were not great. Yeah. And their parents kind of didn't do their jobs and protect them. And so both of them have these complexes. Like Gwen, for example, she's really mad at Fosse for leaving their daughter with Patty Chayefsky. And she's like, they were on the bed together. What was that? Like, she was freaking out. And Bob's like, it's Patty. What are you talking about? And then they flash back to her basically getting raped by this guy in her childhood, or setting up that she was raped.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay.
It makes sense.
Yeah. I thought that was really good. Michelle Williams is so good.
She really is.
She's so good. She sounds just like Gwen Verdon. Like her voice, that kind of, oh, well, that kind of like, kind of warbly, oh, I want to do this, Bob, kind of thing. Like, it's just so spot on. I mean, I'm enjoying it.
I very much am.
I really don't know if other people
I feel like this is definitely a show for theater people.
Yeah, and that's great, actually.
We need shows.
We need to stop making every like piece of art in mainstream media about musical theater, like starter musical theater. Like let's dive right in. Let's go into the history of these people.
Exactly.
Like Bob Fosse's no slouch. Like even non-musical theater people know about Bob Fosse. Yeah. So I'm all for it. But like, oh man, if you're not in this world, there's kind of nothing here for you. Or maybe you'll learn. Maybe you'll get inspired. Or maybe you like vaguely remember your high school production of Damn Yankees and you're like, I want to learn about the guy who did it.
Or maybe you saw the film, the Academy Award winning film Chicago.
Or Cabaret. Amazing films.
And
you want to get into it? So in this episode, Fosse mentioned that he just got hired to work on Pippin. And Pippin is the show he met one Anne Reinking doing. So we know Anne's in the future. He mentioned Stephen Schwartz. He's like, this kid's Schwartz who wrote Godspell. So I don't know if we're going to get a Stephen Schwartz.
We might.
But if we do, I hope we get the Stephen Schwartz hairpiece. He's been rocking that for
a long time.
So we've seen Neil Simon, but we haven't dealt with him very much yet.
Not yet.
And it's Nate Cordry, so I'm thinking he's going to become more important.
I'm sure
later.
Well, it's clear they have a couples relationship. Like they're very
well, and Fosse was like that old. It's so weird to say this, but like Broadway, just like everything else in life, I know a lot of people tend to think it's just a bunch of gay guys and women who run it, but it's actually a bunch of old straight guys, at least back in those days. And so these guys who kind of ran Broadway, like they would just like go to Sardi's and like after the shows and just smoke cigarettes and like talk shop and just we're all so important. And that's kind of, I feel like what they're touching on a little bit. And they were all catty and they like hated each other secretly. They were all so jealous of each other. So I'm really looking forward to when Chicago comes out in this series and it goes up against a chorus line because Fosse hated Michael Bennett so much. Like, it's really crazy that Chicago came out the same year as A Chorus Line.
And two huge, very important shows.
Well, and Chicago didn't become important until that revival in the 90s.
That's true.
And that's the one that made it important because it's like going up against the year Hamilton came out. It's like, how are you going to go up against a fucking chorus line? Pulitzer Prize winning.
That's true.
The musical that invented the workshop. Like, even if you're Fosse with a Gwen Verdon vehicle, how are you going to do that?
That's true.
So he was bitter about that for a while. So we're excited to see where this goes further.
Excited to see maybe some Cheetah Rivera.
Ooh, I'm dying for some Cheetah.
That's definitely going to come up, I'm sure.
All right.
But yeah.
Okay, so that was episode 3 of Fosse Verdon. We'll see you guys in episode 4.